if there is someone who is going to start a new company, why should they choose open source as their collaborative model?
I just think it's a better way because you have that intellectual curiosity. You can be competitors and collaborators all at the same time. And I just think it gives you a richness to be able to really grow upon, and sky's the limit, right? If you come in with that mindset and believe in open source and go that way, it's just amazing people in community. Even if you're building your own community, you can tap into others to help you with that. So I'm going to say open source is open source for the win.
Hi, this is your host Abdul Bhartiya, and we are here at Open Source Summit in Seattle. And today we have with us once again Schlemmer, CEO of Percona. And it's great to have you back on the show this time, not on a tiny screen, but in person. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me again. And it's lovely to be in person and the beautiful Seattle skyline behind us. It's awesome.
Yes, it is. It's a lovely city, lovely event, and lovely people. So what else you can ask for, right? Lovely but fierce. Because I still remember our previous discussion, and I love that because we tend to forget, as you reminded, how do we define open source in today's world? And I like the unapologetic, very, that this is what open source means. And here, no, sorry. And here, Linux Foundation, they announced Velki, which is once again kind of response to what Redis did, which also reminds me of Open Tofu that happened. So a lot of things are happening in the industry. I had a lot of discussions here. I will talk about Velki as well, but before I go there, I will revisit our previous discussion, which will, with Velki in hindsight is that, what do you think of these changes that companies are doing? Is it something that you feel that, hey, open source, we hit some roadblocks, companies stumble, they make mistakes, we will do the course correction? Or you feel that this is a very disturbing development where companies, they originated as an open source company, and then when they have a big community of contributors, vendors, ecosystem, they switch the license. So what are your thoughts on this? Are you like, oh, that's not, or you're like, no, this is concerning?
It's very concerning. I find it very concerning for the reason that for me, it's a trust issue. So open source licensing is very clear, what you can and can't do. And so if you're building a company and you decide that you're starting with open source, that's awesome, right? I love it. We believe in open source because we want everybody to be able to innovate. And I believe all boats rise, right, when the tide goes up. So the concerning part for me is that if you are going out to the market with product that is open source, that has a very clear license, and then you get to a size or a scale, and then you say, oh, well, I just heard someone say, it's too popular, we're going to change the license. That's undermining the trust of open source. And it's undermining the trust of your users in the market. So yeah, I find it concerning that it feels that people are taking a business problem and taking care of it by changing a license, right? So that concerns me. That does concern me, for sure.
How these projects like Velki not only help the community, which can be developer. I mean, a lot of people who invested their time, even as employees, to work on those kind of databases, now suddenly they cannot work on it.
Right.
It's a career challenge. The whole ecosystem the companies build, it's a challenge for them.
That's right.
And of course, users, they go through that. So is this the right approach? Or, what I want to understand from you is that Velki, Open Tofu, they are more than just fork.
Right.
They are also message.
They are absolutely a message. And so when we think about what's the status of open source, is this a new model that we have? And what that model looks like is not having a single corporate owner and really having it as a community, right? So we talk about the community version of this software, the community version of that software. And what I'm seeing, what we're seeing, I believe with Open Tofu and with Valky, is there's that passion and also understanding of how important these different pieces of software are, not just to the developers who love them, but to all the people who rely on them for their businesses that have built business upon them. It's part of their stack. It's really important. So, you asked the question, should Linux Foundation, should they be taking a more active role, or what has their role changed? I think they're doing the right thing and letting the communities decide and then having a place to go. So are we creating a new model? And does that give people pause? And to think about where do we go? Where do we go from here? Let's see how Valky does. I wish Redis success, right? I'm not disparaging that at all. But the Valky community is saying, hey, this is important to us. Pulled it together. You see these multiple corporations that are being a part of it and how they're contributing. And I think that this could be the turning point. It's also along with all the conversations like, how do we pay maintainers better? How do we make sure that there's not maintainer burnout? This could be the model. This could be a model that might continue to grow in terms of a new option to consider.
And the beauty of the way Linux Foundation works is that it's not shutting the door on players like HashiCorp or Redis. It's actually maybe at some point they'll say, let's make Valky our upstream, because Valky has more contributors, very diverse contributors. So that is also now I want to talk about what is the role of Percona in Valky community.
So our role and why we jumped in, right? We've been in the open source database space for over 17 years. Redis consistently comes up as like in the top 6, and it's something that we've looked at. And when Valky came and that quick action of that fork, we're just like, this fits our mission and purpose. We say we believe an open world is a better world, and we want to make sure that everybody can innovate freely. So our role is to come in and help and support and give that commercial support for folks that want to be on Valky, and know that they are formally supported, right? That it's not just through the community support, and that they can continue to rely on that software, on that database. So that's what we feel that our role is, that it fits within our corporate mission statement that we've been living, right? We live and walk that talk, and so that's where we want to be. That's where we want to be there and support in commercial sense, but also in the term of being encouraging and working with that community.
After Open Tofu and after Valky, do you feel that it may discourage other companies from resorting to copyright and license for solving a business problem? Or you see that no, companies will continue to do that, they will not learn from the mistakes?
That's interesting. Remains to be seen. During the conference, having similar conversations with others about this, and obviously I wasn't in the boardroom or in the executive sessions when either of these companies talked about, okay, let's do this, right? Let's change the license for X, Y, and Z reasons, right? I'm sure there's many reasons. Who were all the players at the table to really, are some of them investors, or some of them folks that really aren't steeped in what open source is and the power of community? And can you hold up these examples to see what has happened? If you underestimate the power of your contributors, it should give pause, right? It should give pause. And maybe even having conversations and understand, it's just like all of us, when you have a customer, you get to know your customer. What value, what problems are you solving? How can we solve those problems for you? If you're not having those questions or you're having those conversations, can you do those same things, and not just with your customers, but with your users? Who are your users? What are they needing and wanting? And so is it going to be a deterrent? I think that remains to be seen, because just having a fork, I mean, I don't know the potential financial impact that's going to happen to Redis or what's happened to HashiCorp. How has it changed what their projections were by doing these things? That I don't have insight into. That would be where the financial deterrent would come. It has to be, because it seems that most of these were financial decisions to begin with. So for it to be a deterrent, then there has to be a clear connecting of the dots as to this decision didn't pay off the way we thought it would.
We had this discussion last time also, that when we look at these developments, what kind of impact it will have on newer companies, new technologies who want to build a company around the cool technology that they develop, and they will gauge whether we should go open source or whether we should go proprietary. In your opinion, we had a very good discussion last time with the whole evolution of a company. Is it better to go open source but have a very concrete foundation, and as you work with company, make sure that that vision is not compromised? If not, just go proprietary.
I would hate for people to just go proprietary, right? That's my concern, is what does this mean for open source and that erosion of trust by changing. So as we've talked about as well, I'm not a founder. I've taken over for a founder. Your visions when you start and how it evolves, it's hard to say, I've got this perfect roadmap and how we're going to do that. But if you are coming into something with technology and you know that you believe in open source, or you started with open source, try to envision what would it look like. Try to decide, again, if you want to be open core, understand where is that line? What value do you hold back that you get paid for? Which you absolutely are entitled to do, and you should do. And you have to be a robust company to be able to continue to give back, right? You have to be a going concern. So I do think it is having that thought exercise and understanding, and model yourself off of other successful companies and see what that means, and what is your open source stance and how you're going to do that. And I think that should be discussed early and often. And as you say, purpose-driven company, right? Be clear, is your value to say we're never going to change a license, right? Are you willing to say that up front, right? If you know that you're going to, maybe that's in your back pocket and you're considering to change the license, well, then be very careful on what promises you're making to the community. And if you think you're just going to do a license change, and just start with that license to begin with. I don't know. That's the biggest thing that concerns me, is the trust.
It becomes a trust issue when you do
That's right.
bait and switch. If there is someone who is going to start a new company, why should they choose open source as their collaborative model?
There's a lot of data out there. There's studies out there now that say, what is the power of open source, and how is it powering our economy globally? I think there was a keynote today that showed 95% of companies are using open source, right? That you're going to get reach that way, you're going to get innovation that way, and you don't even know what other ideas might come that are not in your company right there. And by going open source, and I just think it's a better way, because you have that intellectual curiosity. You can be competitors and collaborators all at the same time. And I just think it gives you a richness to be able to really grow upon, and sky's the limit, right? If you come in with that mindset and believe in open source and go that way, it's just amazing. People in community, even if you're building your own community, you can tap into others to help you with that. So I'm going to say open source is open source for the win.
And once again, thank you so much for taking time out. And I really love your views and vision there. I wish and I hope there are more CEOs like that leading the open source companies, so that the mission that a founder created a company with, that does not get diluted as the new leaders come in. So thanks for keeping that. I'll start calling the fierce CEO.
There we go.
Thank you so much, and I look forward to chat with you again soon.
Likewise, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.